Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel to my first movie review in quite some time. I honestly haven't really been going to the movies that much, and if I did, it wasn't to see much too noteworthy. I mean, what, was I going to review Minecraft? Come on. I only have so much time on my days off to, see stuff, and I'm not going to waste my time seeing that. But I knew I had to go see Warfare, directed by Ray Mendoza and Alex Garland, starring Woon-A-Tai, Will Poulter, Cosmo Jarvis, Kit Connor, Finn Bennett, Joseph Quinn, and Charles Melton. And this follows Ray Mendoza, played by Woon-A-Tai in this, basically recounting a mission that they went on back in the Iraq War, and the squad of soldiers that were accompanying him on this mission, and kind of what happens when they're thrust into the horrors of the Iraq War. And this is really interesting because Alex Garland was flirting with the idea last year that he wasn't really going to direct movies for quite some time. And then literally a year after Civil War, this came out. And to my understanding, Ray Mendoza was the war consultant on that film. So they must have linked up there and decided to tell this story, which is essentially Ray Mendoza's own memories and a tribute to some of the brothers that he fought with, many of which are not identified in the film because some of them wanted to be anonymous. The only soldier who was identified from his squadron was Elliot Miller, played by Cosmo Jarvis in this, and the movie is actually a tribute to him. So it's just a recantation of a lot of memories that were conjured up during this experience and the trauma that kind of lies within that. But first off, the beginning of this movie is absolutely unpredictable. I did not expect to see what I saw at the beginning of this film, but it really sets the tone so perfectly. Like, you get that these groups, they're just a regular old group of guys who are doing this mission, and I really love the most about this movie is the direction from Mendoza and Garland, because the direction just builds the tension so seamlessly within the quiet atmosphere of just waiting for something to happen. You know that something is going to boil up to the surface. It really feels like a pot boiler in that sense, where you're just waiting for that moment where everything just kind of turns into chaos. And I absolutely love the slow approach that this movie takes in the first, I want to say, 30 minutes or so, building up to those moments. And then when it finally hits the fan, it's just, oh my goodness, like I felt my heart beating out of my chest. And it really gives way to some of the most horrifying violence I've ever seen in any movie. Like, look, nothing is topping the Omaha beach scene in The Saving Private Ryan, right? But honestly, this was scarier in a lot of ways, and I mean that is like the biggest compliment I could possibly give. I said in my Letterboxd review, like, I doubt there's going to be a horror movie that comes out this year that is scarier than this film. And there is a good section of this film that is just so visceral, so unsettling, just, oh my goodness, I don't think I've been more uncomfortable watching a scene in a movie in such a long time. Like, really, it was just so deeply disturbing and harrowing to watch what happens on this mission. And I just think that the performers here are so excellent, uniformly across the board. Woon-A-Tai is really great as Mendoza, and I really appreciate his sort of subtle approach to playing him. And of course, Will Poulter is great as always in everything, and he has a really interesting way in the way he approaches his character. But I think the real two standouts of this movie are Cosmo Jarvis and Joseph Quinn, who are just absolutely exceptional, just give such heart-wrenching performances, and I really think that without them, I don't know if this movie would be quite as powerful as it is. You also got a lot of other great actors in there. Charles Melton is really great, is one of the leaders of the squad. Michael Gandolfini shows up. He's really good in a few scenes. I mean, everybody here, it's really a stellar ensemble cast for what is happening in this film. And I just think that it is essentially a war chamber piece, which we don't really get to see very often, but I think it is so effective in just portraying what really happened there. It's just very objective in its approach. This is what happened, and there's no other way around it. Though I do have some criticisms with that later, and I'll get into it. But you really just get to see firsthand what these soldiers experienced, and I appreciate that more than anything. I mean, this is going to be one of the most disturbing war films you will ever see, and I just think, yet again, it is so effective in portraying this one particular event in time and how it affected the people there, because you get to see all sorts of trauma that these people are dealing with firsthand as it's occurring in all different kinds of ways. And I really love how you get to see how they fleshed out each perspective in that way, and just the way they utilize the sound design in this. Oh my goodness, this might as well like be a lock for an Oscar nomination. Like, I will be pissed if this doesn't. I said Civil War deserved one, but this, like, far and away is some of the most immersive and visceral sound design you will hear this entire year. Like, honestly, we saw this in Standard, and honestly, it felt like we were watching in IMAX. It was that powerful and that potent, and I just absolutely love how it uses that to enhance the perspective of each of these characters. And it really, really, really is something very special that I hope the Academy recognizes at the end of the year. But I will say, with all this being said, I mean, for a good portion of this movie, I thought this was going to be one of the absolute best films of the year, one of the absolute best war movies of all time. Unfortunately, I don't quite feel that way, though I will say I did like this more than Civil War. But the one thing I will give Civil War, it very much had, you know, more clear character arcs and whatnot to what the story was unfolding and what the themes were. But this one, as I said, it's just recounting this incident, this mission that they went on. And look, there's only so much you can get into with these characters. I understand that you're not going to understand these people on a deep human level. I think more than anything, the understanding we get from them is out of how they react to the situation. I think that is something inherently human that we all can understand. But I do think that with this being just so honed in on what this event was, I think after a while it just kind of stagnates. And I understand that, you know, not every movie is built in a way that it continues to build and build, but I figured that there was going to be a bit more to what actually occurred in this film. And maybe that's a sense of expectation, I don't know, but I just think that the movie does kind of, not flatline, because it's always interesting, it's always engaging, it doesn't feel slow at all, and when it does, it feels very purposeful. So I'm not complaining about slow pacing whatsoever. It's very, very immersive, but I think it loses a little bit of that immersion once you get to the last half of the film. I guess I'm just trying to say it's not as interesting as the rest of it, and honestly, once you see the movie, you'll understand how could it be. But, you know, I've had this criticism with other movies in the past, and I think it does apply to this one. But the other thing that I kind of feel a bit conflicted about, there is some footage, real-life footage, that is utilized at the end of this movie. Not to, you know, get into spoilers, but I think the way it is portrayed and the way it is utilized, I don't want to say it feels flippant, because I understand it's like a tribute to everybody who came before. Sure, it feels slightly tacked on. That is a criticism I have with it. But I just feel like the way it contrasts with the themes in the movie, or just the very straightforward nature, you're going to take away from this movie what you want to take away from it. I know this has been said before, but I think this movie very clearly says that war is not a good thing. And it shows firsthand the trauma that comes from that, right? But at the same time, I feel like what is shown at the end kind of makes me question whether this is like a hoo-rah-rah sort of exercise. I don't know. Like, it's, maybe I'm looking too much into it, but given how the images are portrayed at the end of this movie, it does leave me a little conflicted as to what I'm supposed to take away from the perspective that this movie has on war. And sure, as I said, it is a very, very objective approach to what happened, but at the same time, I feel like it almost negates it by showing the images at the end in the way that they were portrayed. That is all I will say, because I do think that everyone should check this out. I don't know why film Twitter is saying that this is just, oh, this is just reaffirming, like, you know, yay for, you know, hooray for the Army. Like, even though I said I don't feel like it lines up 100%, I certainly don't feel that way. This really does show you firsthand the horror of war and what these soldiers had to go through. And honestly, it doesn't really glorify them either. But, well, anyway, just see the movie, because I really am curious what you guys will think about the ending with all of that being said. But honestly, I'm going to give Warfare a 7.5 out of 10. This really is an unforgettable experience more than it is a great movie, even though it's so deftly directed. I think the filmmaking here is absolutely exceptional. The sound design is amazing. The performances are fantastic. So I really do think that this is one that is very much worth your time checking out in theaters if you can. See it in the best format possible. Maybe it's only playing in standard now, but I'm sure it's playing on some IMAX screens across the country, so please feel free to go check that out. And please feel free to smash the like button and subscribe to the channel, and tell me what you thought about Warfare down in the comments below. Am I a little bit off on this? Is this glorifying the Army? I don't know. I'm really, really curious to hear what you people think about the ending, so if you want to say something about it, just put a little spoiler tab at the end, and we can kind of get into that discussion, because this does not need a spoiler review, right? I think we all know what happened in the Iraq War, but I definitely would love to hear your thoughts on that and so much more. And, you know, thank you for watching this video. There's going to be more movie reviews coming soon, especially next weekend when we finally get to see Ryan Coogler's Sinners, which I am beyond the moon excited for now, especially after hearing those early reactions. So please stay tuned for that and many other videos coming down the line very soon, and I will talk to you in the next one.